The distress beacon screamed through the void like a dying animal, and honestly, that should have been our first warning. But no, we Korathi pride ourselves on being the apex predators of this galaxy, so naturally we assumed it was just another helpless prey ship limping through our territory. Commander Ruthless clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among our kind. His 6 eyes gleamed with that particular hunger that made lesser species wet themselves in terror. Another lost lamb wandering into our hunting preserve, he hissed, his voice carrying that bone-deep satisfaction that came from knowing you held all the cards. Signal the pack, time for some live fire exercises. The bridge of our dreadnought, Bone Render, buzzed with anticipation. 12 of the galaxy's most feared hunters, each one a walking nightmare wrapped in bio-armor that had been forged in the screams of 1,000 conquered worlds. We had turned warfare into an art form. And target practice, well, that was our favorite hobby. Subcommander Grixhal pulled up the sensor readings, his scarred face splitting into what might generously be called a grin. Single vessel, Commander. Human configuration. Running silent except for that pathetic emergency signal. He paused, savoring the moment like fine blood wine. Estimated crew complement 1. A single human, floating alone in the dark between stars, broadcasting their location like an open invitation to their own funeral. The irony was so delicious, it almost made me feel bad about what was going to happen next. Almost. Humans, Ruthless spat, though there was genuine curiosity in his tone. The galaxy's newest addition to our hunting catalog. I hear they break beautifully when properly motivated. His claws extended with that distinctive snick sound that had been the last thing so many species ever heard. Set course for intercept. Maximum intimidation formation. The Bone Render and her sister ships, Blood Harvest and Marrow Cracker, moved through space like sharks sensing blood in the water. 3 kilometers of pure, concentrated death, bristling with enough firepower to glass a small moon. Our biohulls pulsed with that sickly green luminescence that marked us as Korathi warships. And honestly, the sight never got old. As we closed distance, the details of our prey became clearer. The human ship was, well, calling it a ship was being generous. It looked like someone had strapped an engine to a cargo container and hoped for the best. No weapons signatures, minimal shielding and hull plating so thin a child could punch through it with their bare fists. "This feels almost unfair," muttered Weapons Master Krekthar, though his battle-scarred face showed no mercy. "Like using a plasma cannon to swat insects." "Unfair would be letting them live," Ruthless replied, settling back into his command throne. The biochair adjusted to his form with wet organic sounds that would have made lesser species vomit. "Begin standard intimidation protocol. I want to hear them beg before we turn them into cosmic dust." The communication array crackled to life, broadcasting our standard greeting to condemned prey. Vrakthol's voice echoed across the void, each word dripping with the promise of inevitable death. "Unknown human vessel, you have entered Korathi hunting grounds. Prepare to be boarded, catalogued and processed according to our ancient traditions. Resistance will only prolong your suffering." Static. Nothing but the endless hiss of empty space. Ruthless frowned, checking his instruments. "Commander, they are not responding. Emergency beacon is still active, but no acknowledgement of our transmission." "Perhaps they have already died of fear," Krekthar suggested hopefully. "Some species do that when they realize what's about to happen to them." But something felt wrong. In 3 centuries of hunting, I had developed instincts that kept me alive when lesser predators became prey themselves. This silence wasn't the terrified quiet of cornered animals. This was something else entirely, something that made the bio-neural interfaces in my armor whisper warnings I couldn't quite understand. "Sir," Communications Officer Hisnal called out, his voice carrying an edge of uncertainty, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the human vessel. The signatures don't match anything in our database." Ruthless's 6 eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The power core is contained, sir. Perfectly contained. No electromagnetic leakage. No thermal signature variations. It's like they have wrapped their entire ship in some kind of dampening field." Hisnal's claws clicked nervously against his console. I have never seen anything like it. The commander's mandibles clicked in irritation. So they have better shielding than expected. That just means their screams will be more satisfying when we crack them open like a nut. But I wasn't so sure. 300 years of experience had taught me that when prey behaved unexpectedly, it usually meant they weren't prey at all. Unfortunately, Korathi pride had a way of drowning out inconvenient wisdom. Close to boarding range, Warthul commanded. Prep the harvesting teams. I want specimens for the arena and the rest can feed the renders. The massive dreadnoughts moved into position, surrounding the tiny human vessel like wolves cornering a wounded deer. Our biohulls pulsed with anticipation, weapon systems charging with that distinctive whine that preceded so many massacres. That's when the human ship finally responded. Not with words, not with pleas for mercy or desperate negotiations. The cargo container split open like a flower blooming in reverse, revealing what had been hidden inside. And what we saw made every warrior on the bridge freeze in sudden electric understanding. It wasn't a cargo hold. It was a gun. The biggest, most obscenely over-engineered weapon any of us had ever seen, stretching nearly the full length of what we had assumed was a helpless transport. Railgun architecture, but scaled up beyond any rational engineering parameters. The magnetic field generators alone were larger than most fighter craft. "Oh, ancestors preserve us," Grixhal whispered, and for the first time in decades I heard genuine fear in a Korathi voice. The human ship's communication array finally crackled to life, and a voice emerged from the static, male calm, with that peculiar accent that marked him as coming from one of humanity's outer colonies. When he spoke, there was no fear, no panic, no desperate pleading, just cold, professional amusement. "Korathi Dreadnought, Bone Render. This is Commander Jake Morrison aboard the heavy weapons platform. Payback. I have been waiting here for 6 months broadcasting a fake distress signal, hoping one of your hunting packs would show up." The voice paused and I could practically hear the smile. "Congratulations. You just found exactly what you were looking for." The massive railgun began to rotate, tracking toward our lead vessel with mechanical precision that spoke of targeting systems beyond anything we had encountered. Energy readings spiked across every sensor we had, climbing toward levels that shouldn't have been possible from such a small craft. "You see, boys," Morrison continued, his voice carrying across our increasingly frantic communications, "humans have this funny thing about being hunted for sport. We tend to take it personally." The weapon locked onto target, and warning sirens began screaming throughout our fleet. And when humans take things personally, well, the railgun fired. The projectile that emerged from the human weapon wasn't some primitive slug or chemical explosive. It was a coherent mass of accelerated matter traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, wrapped in an energy field that bent space around it like a miniature black hole. The blood harvest, pride of the Korathi warfleet, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was 3 kilometers of bio-armored death machine. The next it was expanding cloud of superheated plasma and shattered dreams. "That's for the Centauri colonies," Morrison said, conversationally, as if he had just swatted an annoying insect. The bridge of the Bone Render exploded into activity. Damage control teams scrambled to assess impossible readings, while weapons officers tried to acquire target locks on something that apparently didn't care about the laws of physics. But it was Vrakthul's voice that cut through the noise, carrying 3 centuries of absolute certainty cracking like thin ice. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Return fire everything we have." But the human weapon was already cycling for its next shot. And Morrison's voice continued with that same infuriating calm. "You know what the funny thing is about apex predators? They always assume they are the only ones who know how to hunt." The second shot took the marrowcracker amidships, splitting the massive dreadnought like rotten fruit. 2 ships, 2 shots, 2 of the most feared vessels in Korathi space reduced to cosmic debris in less than 30 seconds. "That's for the research station on Kepler Prime," Morrison noted helpfully. I found myself gripping my console hard enough to leave claw marks in the biometal, watching our perfect formation dissolve into desperate evasion patterns that wouldn't have impressed a flight school cadet. The bone render was alone now, facing a single human in a converted cargo hauler who had just casually deleted 2/3 of our hunting pack. Impossible, Grix Hale snarled, his pride warring with the evidence of his own sensors. No single ship could generate that kind of power output. The physics don't work. Morrison's laughter echoed across our communications, warm and genuinely amused. Oh, that's cute. You think this is about physics? The human weapon rotated again, tracking the bone render as we desperately tried to bring our own guns to bear. This isn't about physics, friend. This is about mathematics. What mathematics? Rakthul demanded, though his voice carried the hollow ring of someone who already knew they were asking the wrong question. Simple arithmetic, really, Morrison replied. You killed 17 human colonies. I'm one human with one very large gun. The math is pretty straightforward from here. The railgun fired again, and this time I had a perfect view of our death approaching at relativistic speeds. But Rakthul proved that 3 centuries of combat experience counted for something, throwing the bone render into a desperate spiral that carried us just barely outside the projectile's path. The shot missed us by less than a kilometer, close enough that the gravitational weight tore armor plating from our hull and sent shockwaves through our bioneural networks. Emergency systems screamed warnings that no one needed to hear because the alternative to survival was fairly obvious. Persistent little bugs, aren't you? Morrison observed. Don't worry, I have got plenty more where that came from. And that's when the terrible truth hit me like a physical blow. The human weapon wasn't some desperate last resort or jury-rigged suicide device. It was purpose-built, engineered specifically for hunting Korathi dreadnoughts. The targeting systems, the power requirements, the sheer overwhelming firepower, it had all been designed with us in mind. Morrison hadn't stumbled into our hunting ground. We had walked straight into his. Commander, I said quietly, though my voice carried clearly across the bridge. I believe we may have made a tactical error. Vakthul's mandibles clicked in what might have been agreement or the sound of breaking teeth. Weapons master, return fire. All batteries. The bone render unleashed everything we had. Bioplasma cannons that could melt asteroids, neural disruptors that could drive enemy crews insane, gravitational torpedoes that collapsed space itself, the full fury of Korathi military engineering, refined across millennia of successful conquest. The human ship took our barrage head-on, and for a moment hope flickered in our collective consciousness. Plasma fire washed over their hull. Energy weapons struck home with devastating precision, and our most advanced weapons systems reported successful hits across multiple target zones. When the light cleared, Morrison's ship hung in space exactly where it had been before, unmarked and apparently unimpressed. Ah, Morrison said thoughtfully. That tickled. You boys done warming up, or should I wait for the real attack? Shields, Grexhal whispered, staring at readings that couldn't possibly be accurate. They have some kind of shielding we have never encountered. Our weapons aren't even scratching them. But I was beginning to understand something far more disturbing than superior defensive technology. Morrison's ship hadn't absorbed our attack or deflected it. According to our sensors, our weapons had simply stopped working, as if the space around his vessel operated by different rules entirely. You know what your problem is? Morrison asked conversationally, as his massive weapon began rotating toward us once more. You have been hunting civilians for so long you forgot what it feels like to fight someone who shoots back. The railgun fired its 4th shot, and this time Vakthul's evasive maneuvers weren't quite fast enough. The projectile clipped our port bio hull, shearing away 3 decks and leaving a wound that bled atmosphere and dying crew members into the void. That's for the hospital ship Mercy of Stars, Morrison noted with grim satisfaction. We were dying by degrees, and everyone on the bridge knew it. The bone render had been designed to hunt helpless prey, not engage in actual combat with something that could fight back. Our weapons were useless, our armor was failing, and our enemy seemed to have an unlimited supply of ammunition. But Korathi don't surrender. We literally lacked the psychological framework for the concept. So when Vakthul gave his next order, it surprised no one. Ram them, he snarled, his 6 eyes burning with the fury of a predator finally cornered. If we are going to die, we take this human with us. The bone render surged forward, every engine straining to build velocity for one final desperate attack. 3 kilometers of bio-armored death machine accelerating toward a cargo container that had just humiliated the finest killers in Korathi space. Morrison's voice carried across the communications one last time, and for the first time I heard something other than casual amusement in his tone. Something that made my bio-armor's neural interfaces flood my system with pure animal terror. He sounded pleased. "There we go," Morrison said softly. "Now you are starting to understand. See, the thing about humans is, we don't just hunt our predators." The railgun swiveled one final time, locking onto our approaching bulk with targeting precision that spoke of systems far beyond anything we had imagined possible. "We make sure they never hunt anything ever again." The 5th shot took us head-on, and the last thing I remember before the bone render came apart around me was Morrison's voice carrying across the static and debris like a promise made to empty space. "That's for everyone you killed who couldn't shoot back." Then the universe exploded, and I learned what it felt like to be prey. Waking up in an escape pod is never pleasant. But waking up in an escape pod after your 3-kilometer dreadnought got casually deleted by a human in a cargo hauler, that's a special kind of humiliation that burns worse than plasma fire. The pod's biosystems were keeping me alive. Barely. Most of my carapace was cracked, 2 of my 6 eyes weren't focusing properly, and every breath felt like inhaling ground glass. But I was breathing, which put me ahead of the rest of my hunting pack. The debris field that used to be the bone render stretched across several thousand kilometers of space, glittering like scattered teeth in the starlight. My emergency beacon was broadcasting on all frequencies. Though honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted anyone to answer. The last thing I needed was another Korathi warpack showing up to investigate the distress call, only to discover that Commander Jake Morrison was still out there, probably reloading his impossible weapon and waiting for more targets. The pod's communication array crackled to life, and for a moment hope flared in what was left of my hearts. Rescue at last. Someone had heard my beacon and was coming to— Well, looks like we got ourselves a survivor. The voice was human, male. Definitely not Morrison, but carrying that same casual confidence that had preceded the systematic destruction of everything I had ever believed about warfare. My bio-armor's neural interfaces flooded my system with adrenaline and terror in roughly equal measures. Through the pod's tiny viewport I watched a sleek human vessel approach. Not another converted cargo hauler, but something purpose-built for speed and stealth. The hull configuration was unlike anything in our databases. All sharp angles and predatory curves that spoke of engineering philosophies we didn't understand. "Please," I managed to croak through the communication system. Though every instinct screamed against showing weakness to a potential predator. "I am injured, non-combatant, seeking medical assistance." Laughter. Warm, genuine amusement that somehow managed to be more terrifying than Morrison's cold professionalism. "Non-combatant? Friend, you were aboard a Korathi dreadnought in the middle of a hunting expedition. That makes you about as non-combatant as a loaded plasma cannon." The human ship extended docking clamps, securing my escape pod with mechanical precision. A few moments later, the airlock cycled open, and I got my first close look at humanity's idea of a rescue operation. The human who entered was tall by their species standards, with skin the color of burnished metal and eyes that held the particular kind of calm that marked professional killers. He wore armor that looked almost organic, flowing lines that suggested both protection and mobility. Most disturbing of all, he moved like a predator. Not the crude, overwhelming force that Korathi favored, but something more refined, more dangerous. "Name's Captain Alex Rivera," he said conversationally, checking readings on a device that looked like it could double as a weapon. "And you, my 6-eyed friend, are having what humans call a very bad day." "You are here to rescue me?" I asked, though something in his manner suggested that rescue might not be the appropriate term. Rivera's smile was all teeth. "Oh, I'm here for you, all right. See, you were part of the pack that hit the research station on Kepler Prime 3 months ago. 17,000 civilians, including about 40 kids who were there for a school field trip." His expression never changed, but the temperature in the pod seemed to drop several degrees. "So yes, I'm here for you. Just not in the way you are hoping." The biosystems monitoring my vital signs began beeping frantically as my heart's rate spiked toward cardiac arrest. I am wounded, helpless. Your species has laws about treatment of prisoners. Funny thing about laws, Rivera replied, settling back against the pod's wall with casual ease. They tend to be pretty flexible when you are dealing with species that hunt civilians for sport. He gestured toward the debris field visible through the viewport. Morrison did good work here. 3 dreadnoughts turned into scrap metal in under 10 minutes. It's got to be some kind of record. You know Morrison? I asked, though part of me really didn't want to hear the answer. Oh, him? Hell, I trained him. Rivera's grin widened. Jake's got a real gift for turning Korathi hunting ships into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. It's like watching an artist work, except the canvas screams and the paint is made of liquefied predators. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Morrison hadn't been some lone wolf seeking revenge. He was part of something larger, something organized, something that had been specifically designed to hunt the hunters. How many? I whispered. How many? What? How many like Morrison? How many humans are out there, waiting for us? Rivera pretended to think about it. Well, let's see. We started with about 300 volunteers after the Centauri massacres. Good people, all of them. Scientists, engineers, school teachers, shop owners, regular folks who got tired of watching their families get turned into hunting trophies. He paused, studying his fingernails with apparent fascination. Course, that was before you boys hit the medical convoy near Rigel, and the civilian transport at Wolf 359, and that hospital ship Morrison mentioned. My hearts were definitely going to fail. How many now? Current active roster? Rivera's smile could have frozen liquid helium. 12,473. Plus support staff. Plus the folks building more ships like Morrison's payback. He leaned forward slightly, and I could smell the ozone scent that humans gave off when they were anticipating violence. We call ourselves the Long Memory Project. Catchy name, don't you think? 12,000. 12,000 humans, armed with weapons that could delete Korathi dreadnoughts like swatting insects, scattered across the galaxy and hunting my people with the same casual efficiency we had once brought to our own prey. This is impossible, I managed. Your species lacks the industrial capacity for such an undertaking. The resources alone would require— Oh, that's the beautiful part, Rivera interrupted. See, it turns out that when you spend decades hunting civilian populations, you make a lot of enemies. Species who might normally compete with each other suddenly find common ground in wanting your entire civilization turned into radioactive ash. He gestured expansively. The Altarians provided the shield technology. The Centauri Federation supplied the targeting systems. The Vegan Republic contributed the power cores. And the humans? Well, we provided the motivation. The escape pod suddenly felt very small, and Rivera's presence seemed to fill every available space. This wasn't a rescue. This was an interrogation. What do you want from me? I asked, though I suspected I already knew. Information, Rivera said simply. Fleet positions, hunting schedules, command structures. The kind of details that will help my people turn your entire military into scrap metal with maximum efficiency. He pulled out what looked like a data pad, though it pulsed with energy signatures I didn't recognize. Now we can do this the easy way, where you answer my questions and I drop you off at the nearest neutral station with enough medical supplies to keep you breathing. Or, Rivera's expression didn't change. But somehow his smile became infinitely more predatory. Or I hand you over to Commander Sarah Kim. She's the one who specializes in extracting information from Korathi war criminals. Very thorough, very professional, very creative when it comes to motivation techniques. He paused thoughtfully. Sarah lost her daughter in the attack on New Geneva. 8 years old, killed during what your people called a harvesting operation for young specimens. The biosystems monitoring my condition were now screaming warnings that everyone in the pod was definitely going to ignore. You cannot do this. Geneva Convention protocols clearly state. Rivera interrupted gently. The Geneva Convention was written by humans for humans back when we thought war had rules. His eyes were flat, emotionless, like looking into the void between stars. You boys taught us better. You showed us that sometimes predators need to be hunted to extinction. The datapad in his hands hummed with malevolent energy. So let's start simple. How many active dreadnoughts does the Korathi fleet maintain in this sector? I tried to refuse. Tried to maintain the warrior's code that had sustained my people through 3 centuries of successful conquest. But there was something about Rivera's calm professionalism that broke through every psychological defense I had. This wasn't torture. This wasn't interrogation. This was pest control. 47, I whispered. 47 active dreadnoughts plus support vessels. Good, Rivera said, making notes on his device. Current hunting grounds. The information poured out of me like blood from a severed artery. Fleet positions, command codes, tactical doctrines, everything that had once made the Korathi military the most feared force in known space. And Rivera absorbed it all with the casual efficiency of someone collecting garbage for disposal. Excellent work, he said finally, powering down the datapad. This should keep Morrison and his friends busy for the next few months. Maybe longer, if your people are stupid enough to maintain their current patrol patterns. You are going to kill them all, I said. It wasn't a question. Every last one, Rivera confirmed cheerfully. Your entire military, your hunting fleets, your support infrastructure, all of it. We are going to systematically dismantle the Korathi war machine until there's nothing left but debris fields and bad memories. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why not simply drive us back? Force us to abandon human space? Why this complete destruction? Rivera was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the wreckage of my former command. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that seemed to press against the pod's walls. You want to know why? I will tell you why. He turned to face me, and for the first time I saw past the professional killer to the man underneath. The man who had probably been something else entirely before my people taught him what he needed to become. Because you didn't just kill our people, you turned killing into entertainment. You made suffering into sport. His fists clenched, and the pod's atmosphere seemed to thicken. You hunted children for trophies. You tortured civilians for amusement. You turned genocide into a game, and you did it with such casual cruelty that you actually started broadcasting it as entertainment for other species. The accusations hit like physical blows. Not because they were wrong, but because they were completely accurate. The great hunts had indeed become popular viewing throughout certain sectors. The artistry of a perfect kill, the elegance of a well-executed stalking sequence. It had all been transformed into cultural expression. So no, Rivera continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any roar. We are not going to drive you back. We are not going to negotiate. We are not going to show mercy. He leaned forward, until I could see my own reflection in his eyes. We are going to hunt you the way you hunted us. And we are going to keep hunting until there are no more predators left to kill. The communication array crackled again, and a new voice filled the pod. Female, crisp with the kind of professional authority that suggested someone accustomed to command. Rivera, this is Commander Kim aboard the Retribution. Package delivery complete? Rivera activated his response transmitter. Information extraction complete, Commander. Subject cooperated fully. Uploading tactical intelligence now. Excellent. We have got 17 Korathi hunters moving through the Vega system, apparently responding to the distress beacons from the Bone Render. Morrison's already in position with payback, and Lieutenant Commander Torres is standing by with the consequence. Understood. Drop off coordinates for our guest? There was a pause, and when Kim's voice returned, it carried an edge that made my bio-armor flood my system with pure terror. Actually, Rivera, I think our friend here should witness the next phase personally. Educational value and all that? Copy that, Commander. See you at the party. The docking clamps released, and Rivera's ship began moving toward a destination I definitely didn't want to reach. Through the viewport I could see other human vessels emerging from concealment, sleek predatory shapes that moved through space like sharks sensing blood. Where are you taking me? I asked, though part of me really didn't want to know. Rivera's smile returned, warm and terrible. Front row seats to the future of interstellar warfare. You are going to watch 17 Korathi dreadnoughts get turned into cosmic dust by 3 human ships. He settled back in his acceleration couch with obvious satisfaction. Think of it as a learning experience. As we accelerated toward whatever hell the humans had prepared for my people, one thought kept echoing through what remained of my consciousness. We had taught them how to hunt. Now they were going to teach us how to die. The Vega system had been a Korathi hunting preserve for over 2 centuries, a carefully maintained killing ground where we could pursue our prey without interference from other species. Now, as Rivera's ship approached the coordinates, I realized the humans had turned our own hunting ground into a trap that would have made our ancestors weep with professional admiration. Beautiful sight, isn't it? Rivera commented, gesturing toward the tactical display that showed 17 Korathi dreadnoughts, moving in perfect formation toward what they thought was a rescue operation. Your people always did love their precision formations, makes targeting so much easier. Through the observation deck's reinforced viewport, I could see the approaching fleet, the pride of 3 Korathi war clans, responding to the emergency beacons from the Bone Render with all the confidence of predators who had never encountered anything they couldn't kill. Flag Captain Theek Morvat commanded the formation from his personal dreadnought Soul Ripper, a ship that had participated in over 50 successful hunts. They have no idea, I whispered, watching my people sail toward annihilation with the serene confidence of apex predators. Oh, they are about to get educated, Rivera replied. Kim, Morrison and Torres have been planning this particular lesson for months. Your tactical intelligence just helped them refine the details. The human command frequency crackled to life, and I heard Commander Kim's voice calm and professional as she coordinated the destruction of everything I had once believed in. All units, this is Retribution Actual. Korvati formation is maintaining standard hunting configuration. No indication they suspect ambush conditions. Morrison, you are cleared to begin the demonstration. Copy that command. Payback moving to firing position. Target locked and loaded. Through the tactical display, I watched Morrison's converted cargo hauler emerge from behind a small asteroid, that impossibly massive railgun already tracking toward the lead elements of the Korathi formation. But this time, something was different. The weapon's signatures were larger, more complex. What did he do to his ship? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Rivera's grin was pure predatory satisfaction. Jake's been busy during his downtime. Turns out that railgun of his was just the prototype. What you are looking at now is the production model. The Payback had been transformed. What had once been a single over-engineered weapon system was now a floating weapons platform bristling with enough firepower to crack moons. Multiple railgun assemblies, energy projectors that bent space around them, and launch tubes for what looked like self-guided projectiles of impossible sophistication. Korathi Dreadnought Soul Ripper. This is Commander Morrison aboard the human vessel Payback. You are trespassing in human space, and your previous hunting activities constitute war crimes against civilian populations. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. The Cab Morvat's response was exactly what I expected from a Korathi flag captain with 3 centuries of successful kills behind him. Human vessel, you will stand down and prepare to be boarded. Your threats are meaningless against the might of the Korathi war machine. Morrison's laughter carried across the communication channels, warm and genuinely amused. You know, I was really hoping you'd say that. Horaz, Kim, you getting this? Confirmed, Morrison. Target-rich environment confirmed. Beginning attack run. 2 more human ships decloaked, emerging from positions that should have been impossible to reach undetected. The consequence in the Retribution's sleek, predatory shapes that moved through space like living things, and unlike Morrison's converted cargo hauler, these vessels had been built from the ground up for one specific purpose: killing Korathi dreadnoughts. 17 targets, Commander Kim announced with clinical precision. Standard dispersal pattern Alpha 7. All units, weapons free. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Morrison's enhanced railguns fired in sequence, each shot precisely timed to account for evasive maneuvers that never came. The first 3 Korathi dreadnoughts simply vanished, deleted from existence by projectiles that traveled faster than their sensors could track. The Soul Ripper managed to get off a single volley before Morrison's 4th shot took it amidships, splitting 3 kilometers of bio-armored death machine like rotten fruit. That's for the mining colony at Procyon Beta, Morrison noted conversationally. Commander Torres aboard the Consequence opened fire with weapons I had never seen before. Energy beams that didn't just burn through armor, they convinced the armor that it had never existed in the first place. Matter simply ceased, leaving perfectly spherical holes through which atmosphere and crew members were explosively decompressed into space. Hospital ship Mercy of Worlds, Torres announced, each shot synchronized with his words. Medical station at Kepler 7. The children's transport Happy Dreams. Kim's retribution deployed something that looked like seeds scattered into space. Tiny objects that accelerated toward the remaining Corthy vessels with insectile determination. When they struck, they didn't explode, they reproduced, each impact spawning dozens of similar devices that burrowed into biohull armor and began systematically dismantling their targets at the molecular level. Research facility at New Geneva, Kim said quietly. The university at Centauri Prime. Every school, every hospital, every civilian target you turned into hunting trophies. The 17 dreadnoughts that had entered the Vega system with such confidence were reduced to expanding clouds of plasma and debris in less than 4 minutes. 4 minutes to erase centuries of Korathi military supremacy, delivered with such casual efficiency that it barely registered as combat. All targets neutralized, Kim reported. Scanning for survivors. Negative survivors detected, Torres confirmed. Clean sweep. Rivera turned to me with that same warm, terrible smile. And that, my six-eyed friend, is what humans call a teaching moment. The communication array activated one final time, and Morrison's voice filled the observation deck. Rivera, you still got our guest aboard for the educational tour. Present and accounted for, Jake. I think he's getting the message. Good. Because we have got something special planned for the finale. Morrison paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a weight that pressed against the viewport like physical force. Deploy the Remembrance Protocol. Rivera's expression shifted from amusement to something approaching reverence. Copy that. Remembrance Protocol authorized. From each of the 3 human ships, objects emerged that looked like metallic flowers, unfolding in the vacuum with mechanical precision. As they opened, they began broadcasting on every frequency, filling the space around the debris field with signals that carried across the electromagnetic spectrum. What is that? I asked, though some instinct told me I really didn't want to know. Those are memorial beacons, Rivera said quietly. Each one contains the names, images, and personal histories of every human civilian your people killed during their hunting expeditions. Every child, every parent, every person who died screaming while your warriors turned murder into entertainment. The beacons spread throughout the debris field, each one attaching itself to a piece of wreckage from the destroyed Corsair fleet. As they activated, they began projecting holographic displays, faces of the dead, their names, their ages, their final moments recorded in crystalline clarity. We call it the Remembrance Protocol, Rivera continued. Every time we destroy a Korathi hunting fleet, we leave these behind, so that anyone who finds the wreckage will know exactly who they were and exactly why they died. Through the tactical display, I could see the memorial beacons spreading through the debris field like stars, each one a permanent reminder of the price humanity had decided to extract for the casual cruelty of the great hunts. 17 dreadnoughts, reduced to monuments for their victims. How many? I whispered. How many what? How many memorial sites like this exist? Rivera's smile returned, but now it carried something that might have been sadness. As of today, 347 confirmed engagements. Every Korathi hunting fleet we have encountered turned into floating graveyards with full memorial documentation. He paused, studying the holographic faces that surrounded us. Your people kept very detailed records of their kills, made it easy to identify the victim. 347. 347. Korathi fleets, eliminated with such systematic efficiency that it barely qualified as war. It was pest control on an industrial scale, delivered with the same casual professionalism my people had once brought to hunting civilians. Commander Kim to all vessels, the communication array announced. Mission complete. Return to base for debriefing and target assignment for next operational cycle. Next operational cycle? I asked. Ruthless nodded. Oh yes. This was just Tuesday's work. Tomorrow we hit the hunting fleets near Wolf 359, then the weekend operation at the Regio Nebula. He stood up, stretching with the satisfaction of someone who enjoyed their job. Busy times ahead. As the human ships began departing the Vega system, leaving behind a debris field that would serve as both graveyard and warning, Rivera turned to face me one final time. You know what the really beautiful part is? He asked conversationally. Your people trained us for this. Every atrocity, every casual cruelty, every hunting expedition where you turned murder into art, you were teaching us exactly how effective predators operate. His eyes held that flat, emotionless quality I was beginning to recognize in all the humans I had encountered. The only difference is, we are better at it than you ever were. The observation deck's communication system activated one last time, and Commander Kim's voice filled the space around us. Rivera, drop-off coordinates confirmed. Our guest will be delivered to the neutral medical station at Altair 7 as promised. Copy that, Commander. One war criminal delivered as agreed. As Rivera's ship changed course toward the Altair system, I found myself staring back at the memorial beacons scattered throughout the debris field. 3 centuries of Korathi military tradition, reduced to floating monuments for the species we had once hunted for sport. What happens now? I asked. Rivera settled back in his acceleration couch, pulling up what looked like tactical planning documents on his personal display. Now you get medical treatment, psychological counseling, and the chance to contact any surviving Korathi authorities to warn them that humanity has developed some very specific opinions about species that hunt civilians for entertainment. He paused, highlighting something on his display that looked suspiciously like target acquisition data. Of course, whether they listen or not is entirely up to them. And if they don't listen, Rivera's smile could have frozen liquid helium. Then we keep teaching until they do. The thing about humans is, we are very patient when it comes to education. We will keep providing object lessons until every predator in the galaxy understands that some prey bites back. The Altair Medical Station appeared on our tactical display, a neutral facility operated by species that had wisely decided to stay out of the growing conflict between humanity and the Korathi Empire. As we approached the docking bay, I realized that my role in this war was ending, but humanity's campaign was just beginning. One last question, I said as Rivera prepared to transfer me to station medical facilities. Sure. How long will this continue? This systematic elimination of Korathi military assets. Rivera considered the question with apparent seriousness. Well, that depends on your people, really. See, we have run the calculations. At current operational tempo, the long memory project can eliminate your entire military infrastructure in approximately 18 months. He paused, checking his chronometer. Of course, that assumes you maintain current tactical doctrines and continue using the same hunting patterns that made you so successful against unarmed civilians. 18 months. 18 months to dismantle a military machine that had dominated this region of space for 3 centuries, delivered with the same casual efficiency that my people had once brought to hunting helpless prey. As the docking clamps engaged and Rivera prepared to hand me over to neutral medical personnel, one final thought echoed through what remained of my consciousness. We had taught them how to hunt, and now they were teaching the galaxy what happened to species that turned murder into entertainment. The humans called it justice. I called it the most effective extermination campaign I had ever witnessed. And somewhere in the depths of space, Commander Jake Morrison was probably already positioning his impossible weapon for the next lesson in the curriculum. The hunting season was over. The War Crimes Tribunal had begun. And humanity, it turned out, was very, very good at teaching permanent lessons to predators who thought civilians made good sport. The memorial beacons continued broadcasting in the empty Vega system, each one a star that remembered the dead and promised that their killers would join them soon. Very soon indeed.